Hello and welcome. In this portion of the lesson, we will review solving systems of linear equations using elimination method where we are not given inverse terms. Again, we're going to start with what is given. You're going to be given solve. And I'm going to write my equation to solve here. So I'm going to have 5x minus 7y equals 16. And then we'll have negative x minus 7y equal 8. All right, when you look at this problem, you do not have inverse term. Yeah, you have the same term. You have negative 7y and negative 7y. If you try to add, to eliminate, it won't work. You will get negative 14y, right? So it won't work. So what you need to do here, you need to think of what can you multiply one of these equations by so that you can have inverse terms, all right? So I'm going to supply it for you. If you multiply either equation by negative 1, then you will have inverse term. This is the plan. Let me write the plan for you. You must label your equations, equation 1, equation 2, right? And then you're going to tell me what you're going to do, or tell the person marking your paper what you're going to do. All right, so I'm going to multiply. So I'm going to say let equation 3 be equal to equation 2 times negative 1. When we multiply by negative 1, every single term in that equation will change signs. What am I saying? Here it is. I say I'm going to multiply equation 2 by negative 1, right? So here it is. If I multiply negative, this is what I'm trying to multiply here. I'm multiplying this guy, all of this guy, by negative 1, right? So when I multiply all of this guy by negative 1, I'm going to get x plus 7y equal negative 8, right? If you see that when I multiply equation 2 by negative 1, I get this, my equation 3. Go ahead and raise your hand. If you see that when I multiply equation 2 by negative 1, we get equation 3. Just go ahead and raise your hand. Remember, when you multiply by a negative number, the sign change, right? So what we're doing now, we are actually preparing for elimination, right? We're preparing for elimination. All right, Ford sisters, I don't see your hand. Does that mean you do not understand? Okay, go ahead and raise your hand, young people, if you understand. I need to see that you're with me.
Mr. Johnson, how come you multiplied it by negative 1?
All right, I multiplied it by negative 1 because I saw that in equation 1, I had negative 7y. In equation 2, I had negative 7y again. And if I multiply equation 2 by negative 1, then I'll have inverse terms, right? I'll have inverse terms. So this is the reason why I multiplied by negative 1. Because when I multiply by negative 1, I got equation 3. And I'm going to write equation 1 by it right now so you can see why I did it, right? Again, all right? So here it is. I'm going to write my equation 1 here. Do you see it now? This is my equation 1. Do you see it now? Do you see the inverse terms? Raise your hand if you see the inverse terms between equation 3 and equation 1. Keep those hands up. If you don't see it, lower your hands. If you see the inverse terms, raise your hand. All right, I see a few hands up. I see some hands going up. Very good. All right. Jade, I don't see a hand. Jazara, I don't see a hand. Nuraya, Virgil, Euler, I don't see a hand. All right. Look now. All right, I see those hands coming in. All right, so when you look at the problem, you remember the very first lesson I taught you on this? I told you that you need to check for two things. Anybody remember one of the things that we need to check for? Go ahead and tell me. One thing that we need to check for.
I don't know.
Inverse terms.
Right. You had to check for inverse terms. So when I check both these equations for inverse terms, it doesn't have inverse terms, right? The other thing, I'll just remind you, the other thing that you should have checked for is whether you have two systems of linear equations, right? In two variables, right? Or just two systems of linear equation. Yes, we have that, so we check for inverse terms. Thank you, Mr. Dean. All right, so we check for inverse term initially. What was written in red was what was supplied. And we see that we do not have inverse terms. So we need to have inverse terms, but we can't just change it to inverse terms without doing it mathematically, right? And so you multiply. I look at it and I see that if I could get a positive 7y, then I would have inverse terms, right? And because, how would I get a positive 7y? Is if I multiplied by a negative 1, right? So I multiplied all of equation 2 by negative 1, giving me equation 3 in green. And then when I compare equation 3 with equation 1, I can see I have my inverse terms. So here are my inverse terms. These are my inverse terms. And now I can add equation 1 to equation 3, or we can add both of them. All right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just do the first step after this, right? To show you that what comes next is exactly what we did in the last lesson. So I'm going to rewrite so you can have both equations in the same space. All right. So this was, all right. And then we would actually add these. And when we add these, we'll get 6x. Those will be canceled. When we add this, we'll get 8. And then we'll divide by 6. Divide by 6, so that x is equal to, all right, when we reduce this, we'll actually get 4 over 3, so we'll get 4 over 3. All right, so this is it. X equal 4 over 3. And then we would substitute x equal 4 over 3 in one of the equations, and then we'll just go from there, right? After this step, you know exactly what to do. And so I'm not going to reteach that right now. Right? So lower your hands, please. Lower your hands. Lower your hands. All right, thank you. All right, now, listen to me carefully now. If you understand how I got the inverse terms in equation 3 and equation 1, if you understand how I got that, go ahead and raise your hand. All right, those of you who do not get it, go ahead and let me hear you. Talk to me. Talk to me. Help me so that I can help you. Remember to raise your hand, you will click on participants and then you look in the lower right and you will see how to raise your hand. All right, if that's the issue. Satya, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
All right, go ahead and raise your hand, please. I want to see visually that you're with me. Very good, Mr. Euler. Very good, very good. You guys understand. All right, so whenever you get a problem, you want to check two things. You want to check, do you have equations in standard form, right? Standard form for linear equations, right? Then you're going to check, do I have inverse terms? If you have equations in standard form and you do not have inverse terms, you need to find out what you need to multiply one equation by or both equations by to get those inverse terms. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.